Good evening. Welcome back to this edition of Northern Maine Productions. I'm going to do a little different video tonight. It's getting summer season's ending here in Northern Maine. It's coming on into fall, and any of you from Northern Maine or New England knows what that means. It means it's going to get colder. Heating oil prices are at a record high right now, I should say. That's gonna spell probably financial combustion for some people. So I suspect probably there's going to be lots of space heaters used this winter, and that's not always the best option, but sometimes it's the only option people have. I'm going to go over some safety things here with you guys tonight on space heaters. This is just based on my own experience. I'm not a professional, I'm not a firefighter, I'm not a fire marshal, nothing like that, but I know a little bit about electricity, and I know that these things can certainly burn your house down if you're not careful with them. Obviously, I've got an extension cord rigged up here down in my basement for this. Just because you saw that here, do not ever run your space heater on an extension cord. And especially do not ever run 2 or 3 of them on an extension cord. This cord isn't even got enough rating for 1 space heater, let alone 3. Not for any duration of time anyways. We can obviously test them here and demonstrate them with this fairly safely, but excuse me. So I got a few different heaters here. Obviously this one has a distinctively Art Deco feel to it. That is because it is from the early 1940s. This is an Arvin Space Heater. Obviously, if you got something like that, which I'm sure, you know, this is New England, and there's the problem now is like older people from back in that time period are dying. There's been lots of estate sales, and there's lots of mid-century modern stuff coming up for sale over the last 10 years or more. This thing would be no exception to that rule. These things are still pretty common. This one here, I recently worked on this and fixed this one and modernized it somewhat. I don't know if you can see it, but this has a 3-wire grounded cord on it. I actually grounded this because this thing is made entirely of metal. There's no plastic parts inside of it. There are porcelain insulators in there to insulate the heating coil, but the switch has just got a wafer type switch in it. It's actually made out of metal leaves with contacts on them. You know, there's nothing to say that it couldn't break. And of course the furnace has to start. Bear with me just a second, I gotta shut that off. One of the most important things you could look for in a space heater, I mean, obviously other than the age of it, would be, you know, inspect the cord. Make sure that the cord is in good condition with no damage. I'm going to show you this one. This cord right here is a good example of a damaged cord. You look very, very closely at that, you can see that that cord has been overheated and it is melted. That is on this unit. I think probably what happened to that was that cord got plugged into an old outlet that was very loose and it got hot. It's been like that for quite a few years. I do still use this heater in my basement when I'm taking a shower in the wintertime. It does still work. One of the most important things you could test on a space heater is to make sure that it shuts off when it tips. Make sure the tip switch works and it shuts off. If your space heater does not have a tip switch on it, I would not recommend using it. Because if it falls over and the air inlet or the air outlet gets plugged up, you know, blocked by blankets or curtains or floor or whatever, thing's going to overheat and it could set something on fire. This little unit right here, this is a rival Titan. This one here is actually a rival Titan too. This unit up here dates from about 1999 or 2000. This used to belong to my mother. It's been used an awful lot. I mean, I've used it a lot over the years and it's had some problems. It actually had a wire terminal burn off inside of it at one point in time, but I've repaired it and I don't use it and leave it unattended at all. This unit is a rival heater. This one has a problem. This little heater does work. It works quite well. It's quiet, there's no vibrations to it. The problem with this is when you run it on high, it keeps going into overheat mode. It trips out, goes into overheat mode after, you know, like 5 or 10 minutes. I don't know if you can see that, but the coils in there on the top side of that tend to get really red and hot for some reason. I took it all apart and completely cleaned it all out. I mean, there's no dirt or dust or anything in it, but it still continues to overheat and trip out. And also, there's no tip over switch in that unit. So guess what? That unit never gets used. I would especially never leave that one unattended. And just because that it has that malfunction with it, I would never use it anyways. I don't trust it. This old-fashioned Arvin heater, surprisingly, is probably almost as good as that one, other than this unit does not have a temperature control on it. So when you flip that switch and turn it on, it runs continuously until you shut it off. Now, as you can tell, for a unit that was built in the early 1940s, it sounds very good, and it actually does work very good. And even as old as this thing is, it has a tip switch on it. There's a little peg protruding out of the bottom of that. and you pick that up off of the floor, it stops. That was the only reason I decided to keep this and fix it. Other than that, I would have thrown it away. I took that completely apart and cleaned everything out of it. And I oiled the motor and checked all the wiring over. I put this newer cord on it also and grounded it. The only disadvantage to this heater is it's not double wall construction. It is all metal, and I doubt that there's any fire danger from this thing itself catching on fire. However, the top of this thing and the whole cabinet of it really gets really hot. So if you were to use this, I would recommend using it. Do not put it on a carpet. You know, put it on something hard that's not readily flammable. Don't let any curtains or anything like that hang around it. Anything flammable. You can use it, I mean, if you had to. But the other important thing, don't use a heater like this around children. I mean, because if a little kid laid their hand on that after that been on for a half an hour or so, I mean, it would probably burn them really bad. But you know, this thing is really a testament to the quality of appliances that were made in America back in those days. I mean, obviously it was built very well. It's been used a lot, it's banged up and it's beat up, but it still works awesome. This little rival Titan heater over here, you know, that's been a pretty good unit too. I'd consider that unit to be fairly safe. It does have overheat protection on that one also too, which has never tripped to my knowledge. But so in addition to never plugging these into an extension cord, also never put more than one of these on one circuit, because the circuits in your house are not designed to carry 3,000 watts. I mean, this heater here consumes 1,500 watts. This unit consumes 1,500 watts. The amperage on this, I actually looked at this, it says 12.5 amps. So I mean, just two of them would overload a 20 amp circuit. This heater here, you can tell this one's from the old days, because this one is not rated at 1,500 watts. This one is rated at 1,320 watts. Probably the reason for that is because it was probably designed to run on equipment like this. Old knob and tube wiring with 15 amp fuses in it. However, from my own observation, the heat output on that is quite good. It does work quite good. So I don't know if I mentioned it, but in addition to never plugging these into extension cords, don't put more than two of them on one circuit, and never ever run your space heater on those outlet strips, those power strips. They're not rated to carry current like these things use. Plug them directly into a wall receptacle, and make sure that your wall receptacles are nice and tight. If your plugs just loosely slip in there, get your receptacle changed and get a nice tight outlet receptacle. Better yet, put a 20 amp receptacle in. Most of those cheap $1.99 receptacles you buy at hardware stores are only rated for 15 amp. You can pay a little bit extra for them and get a 20 amp outlet. It's a lot heavier duty, and it will hold your plug better, it will make a better connection, and there will be less heat generated. Also, I would recommend running any space heater on a 20 amp circuit with 12 gauge wiring exclusively. It's okay, you can run them on 14 gauge wiring, but If you got other devices like lamps or whatnot plugged in your living room or whatever, and you happen to have a 15 amp circuit, you're going to have problems. You're going to be tripping circuit breakers. But anyways, I guess I'll end that video here. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm sorry if I've been moving this camera around some. My tripod is MIA. I believe it might be out in the garage. So, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something from it. If you do use space heaters this winter, please be safe. Don't burn your house down. Don't put your family at risk. Don't make your family suffer loss because you and your house burned down in the middle of the night from an electric space heater. Anyways, I'm signing off now. Have a good evening and happy Labor Day. See you later.